Hi, my name is Pamela Fuselli, and I'm the host of Popping the Bubble Wrap. Are you the person in your family who worries about the safety of others, about buying safety products and using them? Are you yelling, "Yes, that's me"? Then this is the podcast for you. Raising a child or children can be a hair-raising undertaking, and keeping them safe is your priority. Parachute's Popping the Bubble Wrap podcast explores what you really need to think about and provides easy tips on prevention strategies. No bubble wrap here, though. Car seats. We know they're important for our baby's safety, but one trip down a shopping aisle filled with them or scrolling through an online store can be confusing and frustrating. The first car seat you'll need after your child is born is rear-facing, which is what's recommended for infants and younger children. But what kind? How do you install it? How long do you keep using it? Why is rear-facing best? What are the laws? Today, we're going to talk it through. Everything you need to know about selecting, installing, and using a rear-facing car seat. Joining me today for the conversation are parents Katie and Jessica, as well as our expert Katherine Hutka, president of the Child Passenger Safety Association of Canada. Welcome, everyone.
Hi. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
So, Katie and Jessica, you both have young children. Talk to me about rear-facing car seats. What has been your experience buying and installing your car seat? Did you have a wrestling match in the back seat when you were trying to get that thing into the back seat properly? Jessica, maybe I'll start with you.
I have a small car, so the first car seat that I ever bought actually didn't fit in my car. And I thought that I would be able to make it fit, but in the end, there was no way to make it fit. And I did not expect that to happen. So I did have to purchase a different seat so that I could actually fit it in my car. And that was just like a really big thing that I wasn't expecting to happen because it's a really big purchase, right? So to accidentally make a purchase that large that doesn't work was a pretty big shock to me.
Yeah, it's difficult. It's confusing. And you have to get the car seat into the car and the child into the car seat. So there's two different fits that you have to think about. And I think a lot of people wouldn't think about, would this fit in my car? They just assume it did.
Yeah.
Katie, what about you? What was your experience when you were buying and or installing?
So I'm in the funny position of not having my driver's license, but I do have regular use of a car seat because I'll use it in Ubers or help put miles in the car when my husband's driving. And so for me, having a car seat that's really easy to take in and out is important because the first time I tried to take an Uber with a car seat, it was my mom and I in the back seat, each of us trying to buckle a different part of it. And it was a nightmare.
So there was some wrestling involved.
Oh, yeah. None with my child, all with the car seat.
Yeah, exactly. Wrestling the car seat into submission. That scenario, is it's different than Jessica. You would have bought your car seat, put it in your car and not taken it out, presumably.
Yeah.
As often as Katie, if you are using, rideshare services, you'd have to take it out and put it back in. Did you become an expert doing it that often or?
I wish I could say yes, but absolutely not.
Because it's very complex. I mean, you'd think that, after all these years of manufacturers making car seats, that they would have found a way at least to make it easier. So you talked a little bit about getting the car seat in the car. Jessica, what about getting Cameron into the car seat? How did that work? Was that fairly easy?
It's okay. Again, I have a small car, so I do struggle to kind of fold my son up. He's 2, so he's a little bit of a bigger boy. So I do have to kind of roll him into a ball and get him in there because there's not a lot of space. So I do occasionally knock his head on the door frame trying to get him in, but he's really good. Once he's in, he lets me buckle him up and stuff. He's a really good boy, but it's just the initial trying to squeeze him through the small opening.
It's the small opening of the door of the car that's the issue,
Yes,
I guess.
yeah.
Yeah, Katie, what about you? How is Miles getting into the car seat or being in the car seat and you getting him buckled in properly?
I mean, he loves his car seat. He loves it when it's out of the car. Getting him into the car, I think I have a very similar situation as Jessica. You know, you're always kind of avoiding the head, and you don't always.
Yeah. Well, how many of us haven't knocked our head one time or another getting into a car? Katherine, so rear facing is best. What are some of the common mistakes that you see parents making when they're buying a car seat, when they're installing it for their child? We've heard Jessica talk to us a little bit about, not realizing that not all car seats fit in cars.
So I think there are two different things here. So like you were saying about like what kinds of errors that caregivers make when it comes to installing, but you're right. There are some errors or some things that they may not be looking out for when purchasing a car seat as well. And how would you know? You don't know until you know, right? I think one of the things is really thinking about what are your needs? What do you need in a car seat rather than what your friend or your cousin has, but what are you looking for in a car seat? Knowing that all of the car seats that are, sold by reputable Canadian retailers are tested and meet very high Canadian standards for safety. And so really what you need to find is the car seat that's going to fit your child, your car, pretty key there, the way that you're going to use that every day and your budget. And that you're going to use on every ride. Like Katie has that issue of every ride, and it could be in a different car, and it could be with a different, and carrying it in and out of cars. So I think just really thinking about what are your needs when it comes to a car seat. What do you need it to do? And so for Jessica, it sounds like she needs the smallest, most narrow, front to back car seat. And so if she was shopping for an infant seat, for or a rear facing only seat, that seat with a handle, the bucket seat, to bring home a baby, she would need to find that one that's the shortest, that takes up the least amount of room front to back, or consider moving straight to that convertible seat, to that larger seat. And it sounds like you might have done that, Jessica. Yeah. I see you nodding there. Yeah. Is that the solution that you had? So you had like a really large infant seat, and then you moved to that larger rear facing convertible seat that, strangely enough, was probably still shorter front to back because you chose one. You knew what you needed at that point. Is that right?
I got one that was a little more compact, so it worked better.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's a solution that some people use. Another solution sometimes, if the car seat with the base doesn't fit in the car, some people could just use that car seat with the handle, and they could put it in baseless if that's the car seat they have, to use it until they're ready to move to that larger rear facing convertible, to find a seat that's going to figure out if the car seat will fit in their car when used without the base. So that's another possible solution. And then heard for Katie, what she needs is something that goes in and out easily and quickly. And she probably is also looking for a feature of it being light and not too heavy when,
Absolutely.
Maybe you're carrying a kiddo on one hip and a car seat on the other, if you don't have a partner who's with you, hopping into an Uber. So you may want something that's lightweight and fairly straightforward, and that goes in quickly in a few key strokes. So that's what you're looking for, because you want to get out of there and not wrestle with the car seat while also possibly wrestling with the baby who might be getting away. And so just knowing what you're looking for when you're going into it, because not all car seats can do all things, right? There's no one perfect car seat for anyone. Oh my goodness. What I would, that the biggest question I have is, please, can you just tell me what's the one perfect car seat? Just tell me, and then I'll just, that's all I need. I know you can't really say it, but please just tell me. And there isn't one. There really isn't, right? Like Katie needs something that's lightweight and, it's going to maybe last a long time because she wants to be able to use that in multiple cars in different places, and is going to go in fairly easily. And Jessica needs that to be, short and narrow and to fit in that tight space. And maybe that's going to mean that but maybe she's never taken it out. So she can handle something that's bigger or bulkier, weighs more. Right. But once it's in, it's in. Yeah. So there's no one right car seat for all situations. And so I think another mistake that caregivers make is that, There's no one right car seat for all situations, but they're also not maybe they're looking too far ahead when they're purchasing a car seat. And so they want, sometimes I hear people who want the last car seat you will ever need, particularly people like Jessica, who have bought 2 car seats in the span of 4 months and are like, okay, this is the last one, the very last one. But, sometimes what you need now and for the next little while is more important than finding that car seat and inappropriately expecting that car seat to meet all of your needs 5 or 6 years down the road as well, right?
Yeah, Katherine, I think that's a great point. And I see Jessica and Katie nodding at a lot of what you said. But, and it's almost like you almost don't know what you don't know until afterwards. Like, especially when it's your first baby or you haven't had a baby in a while and you need to refresh on the rear facing and that you almost have to go through it to be able to really look back and see what you needed to know. But Jessica and Katie, is there anything that Katherine said that surprised you, or does that sound, like what you experienced? Jessica, maybe you can start.
I think what she said made a lot of sense. I didn't think about, in my mind, I just got the seat that, all your friends tell you to get without thinking that I needed to get one that specifically fit my needs. It totally makes sense, but it's not something you think about in the time. You just, as a new mom, you're asking all your friends for advice and none of them tell you, they just tell you the one that they have that works for them. So yeah, in saying that.
And they tell you that they love it.
Of course.
But they have a giant SUV.
Yeah, exactly. All my friends have vans. I have a small sedan.
Vans.
Yeah. Katie, what about you?
I think it all made sense. For me, I was definitely one of those people who was looking for the one. And so it gave a lot of context to that.
You, Jessica, you started to talk about, what was top of mind for you and where you went for information, like friends or the internet, because there's so much information about finding the right, and we talk about the right car seat. And I think that's the key, is it's the right car seat, not the one car seat or rear facing seat.
And not only is it the right car seat, but it's the right car seat for the right time.
Yes.
Right.
So at this time in my life, this is how we're doing this. This is the vehicle I have. This is the size and weight and weight and development of my kiddo. For this time, what's the right car seat for me? And then looking for those features that are going to make it last longer, right? Once you find the car seat that is going to fit your needs for travel, for space, for, all of those things, finding something that's going to last a little longer than its neighbor. Right?
Yeah. It's like a puzzle
that
piece.
has a higher weight or a higher height for rear facing, and then a higher weight or a higher height for forward facing is pretty helpful.
Yeah. It's like puzzle pieces that need to fit together.
Yeah.
Katie, where did you go? Where did you go for the information? Did you talk to friends, or did you search the internet, or what did you do when you were looking for information about?
Yeah, I did a little bit of both. I'm very fortunate that my mom is actually a pediatric injury researcher, so I use her word as kind of the guiding light. And so she goes by everything on Parachute. That was the first link I got. That was all the information I read through. So Parachute was definitely my number one, but that was through my mom.
Right. Yeah, Jessica, you said...
So you asked a family friend. It just happened to be a very well-connected and very knowledgeable, friend or mom.
Yes,
yeah.
That's good to know. And I wish more parents had direct access to that and some of the other reputable places to find information, like Child Safety Link and the Child Passenger Safety Association. Jessica, you talked about friends having, you talk to them, they have different SUVs and every kid is a bit different. Did you do any internet searching?
Yeah, I found Facebook groups really helpful. You can find car seat safety groups, and usually fairly good. For me, a lot of trial and error I found helped for me, which isn't the best in this type of a situation, obviously. But I had a couple friends come over and we all played with each other's car seats, and we're just trying to see what fit and stuff. So doing that was helpful to just kind of see how different things fit for all of us. I don't know. It was just...
I think that's really
yeah,
helpful.
it was
I think
kind
that's
of fun. It was
great.
like a play date. We're like,
Yeah,
let's
that's so
just
cool.
take all of our seats out and like play with them and see like how they fit differently.
Absolutely. I think that's a great idea. I mean, I had to go find a seating solution for a kiddo who was being discharged from the hospital today. And I brought 4 solutions
wow.
that we were going to figure out what, I don't know what the one right solution is. I'm trying to, if I've got those options, I want to, talk to the family, see how the vehicle works, see who else is riding in that car, like all of those questions. How is this going to fit their needs and their life, right? So, no, I think that's a great way to do it, is to, and even some technicians will keep a small collection so that people can try different car seats and they can, see what would fit in someone's car.
That's great. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Katherine, maybe I'll start with you and share with some suggestions about where to find some credible information. Nearly 3 decades ago, Amazon set out to be Earth's most customer-centric company, where people can discover and purchase the widest possible selection of safe and authentic goods. As part of that mission, they obsess over earning and maintaining trust by ensuring that they provide a trustworthy shopping experience. Amazon is dedicated to helping you make informed choices and use your purchases safely. Visit www.amazon.ca/product safety and usage and explore expert tips, articles, and videos from our partners to ensure a secure shopping experience. Okay, so before the break, we were talking about places that are credible. Katherine, can you quickly list 2 or 3 credible places for information, and we'll make sure that there's more resources in our show notes as well.
Absolutely. So I think you'd already mentioned Child Safety Link, of course, which is the Children's Injury Prevention Center based out of IWK Health. Parachute. I know that Katie had mentioned Parachute has some lovely and up-to-date information on their website now as well about car seats. You can also find information on the Child Passenger Safety Association of Canada. But where you're going to find that parent-sent information is actually finding someone who is local to you. There's a Find a Technician map. So that's a Child Passenger Safety technician in your area where you can ask those questions and just kind of find out what's local to you and where you can find more help in your community. And that's where you would find it. And I did hear from Jessica as well that there was some online Facebook groups where there are technicians that are based around car seat safety in Canada. And that those can be really helpful sources of credible information as well. Whereas sometimes you find, blogs and TikTokers, and some of them are really good and some of them aren't. And it's just really hard to tell the difference. And the other thing that I do find that's really challenging is online reviews, because I know we had spoke kind of before we started recording that sometimes online reviews, I can read them and I can hear that parent or caregiver just didn't figure out that key feature of their car seat. And so to them, this is the worst car seat ever. And they've written a review, but it's a really good car seat that we recommend a lot. It just has this little bit of a learning curve, and they didn't figure that out. There's a few other sources in Canada. There's Safe Beginnings as well, who Holly from Safe Beginnings, I know, is on some of the other podcast recordings, and she's created a little list of different kinds of car seats as well. And there's a few others out there who have been trained as child passenger safety technicians, but it's important to find that information in Canada because those are the kinds of car seats that you can access and that you can purchase. They do have a lot more variety and selection in the US, but those car seats would not be legal to use for us in Canada. So we would buy Canadian car seats. So it's important to find, trusted Canadian sources as well of that information. There was one other thing I totally forgot to mention, and that's with the manufacturers as well. And so the manufacturer websites, they often have, when I've asked people like, where did you find information about how to install your car seat? And they say YouTube. Well, was it YouTube where you just typed it in randomly, or did you go to that manufacturer's website and find their YouTube videos that they've created for how to install their car seats? And that can be really helpful to find information with the manufacturer about how to use their seats. Because ultimately, that's what a child passenger safety technician is going to do. They're going to find that information about how to use your seat that was written by or created by your car seat manufacturer. And sometimes also you can ask them questions directly on, in their DMs on Instagram and different other platforms as well, or send them an email. Or you can often find answers to those questions in the FAQs or frequently asked questions on the car seat manufacturers' websites as well.
Those are great tips. And let's keep with the manufacturer line of discussion. Katie and Jessica, if you could speak to the manufacturers, what two things that you would say, please improve this in the car seats, in the rear-facing car seats that you manufacture, given your experience with these rear-facing car seats? Katie, maybe you could start.
If there were two things I'd want fixed, one would be the buckles. I have an issue with how many times you have to strap them in, especially if you're trying to get in and out of somewhere really quick. And number two would be making them easier to level. So sometimes they're tilting, right? And if you're in a rush, you have to make sure that it's square or else it's not safe. But taking the time to do that is tricky sometimes.
Right. Yeah, those are two excellent points. Jessica, what message would you give to manufacturers if you could talk to them directly?
I think it'd be really great if they, again, to my situation, instead of giving like the weight and height limit on the car seat manual, also add the front to back space that the seat takes up. That would have made my car seat searching a billion times easier if I could have been like, oh, this one takes up this many inches front to back and this one takes up 6 inches more. So this one would work better for me. Like, it would have made that so much easier for me. So if they could include that in their manuals or something.
And my question to you is, how did you figure it out? How did you figure out which ones were going to be the shortest front to back for you?
I asked my friend who is a CPST. She has 3 kids, and I told her what seat I had and that it didn't fit. Like, there was no way it was going to fit in my car. So she told me which one to get, and she told me that it takes up less space front to back. So I went and got that one, and it fit like a glove.
Gotcha. So she heard what your needs were, knew what your budget was, knew how big your kid was. Is he a tall, skinny guy or kind of a round? She knew what your kiddo was and gave you, the 1 or 2 options that were going to meet your needs.
And we did pick one.
So that can be really helpful.
We did pick one with a higher weight limit too, because that was something. My son is really short but really heavy, so I wanted to keep him rear facing longer. So that was something that was important to me, was finding a seat that fit my car and would fit him more than likely the weight instead of the length.
Yeah. So you knew that, again, you were going to need for a heavier kid to stay rear facing. So you needed that higher weight limit as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Katherine, let me wrap up this episode with exactly that message. Can you talk to us a little bit about why rear facing, as long as possible, is the safest way to go?
Absolutely. So we all know we all start off rear facing, right? So babies come home from the hospital or, are making their first ride, and they have really large heads and weak necks. Right. So we've always known that, no one's ever questioned the fact that infants and babies were going to ride facing the back of the car. And one of the reasons is because they do need that recline, of course, to be able to maintain their airway. And that's one way to do it. But the big reason is, how people are injured in car crashes. And so we're trying to make sure that a child is going to have a better chance of being uninjured or less injured in the case of a collision. And what we know is that most seriously, and fatal collisions have a frontal aspect. So the car is going to hit something and it's going in a forward motion. And so everything in the car is going to move towards that point of impact. And in this case, the most common and the most serious point of impact is a frontal point of impact. And so we know that for us, we've got a seatbelt that's holding us back and possibly an airbag that's going to protect us as the driver. But we want to make sure that little baby with that really big head that takes up 25% of their body mass, rather than having their head go forward, they're turned the other way. And so the back of the car seat catches and cradles their head, neck, and spine, keeps it aligned. And so they don't have a harness or a seatbelt or an airbag that's protecting them, the whole back of the seat is going to catch and cradle that child. And then it's going to rebound back up as well. But that's that first point of impact. That's how that child is restrained. And it's because they have that large head and that weak neck that we know that this is so important for them. And so what's changed in the last few years is we've always known that newborns had a large head and a weak neck and that they needed this rear-facing position. But now we know also that like 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds and even 4-year-olds have more in common physiologically with a newborn than they do with an adult, right? And so they are more like, they're not a little adult, they're a big baby, right? They have still a larger head and a weaker neck. And so we know that rear facing is going to give them the best protection in that sudden stop or that crash, to make sure that they, you say, never tell me the odds. Well, the odds are better for them in that most common and most commonly fatal type of crash to be the best protected. Yeah. And so people know this. I know Jessica knows this and Katie knows this. We've got some people who have lots of, a CPST friend and a mom who does injury prevention. So, the word is getting out there and we are finding that's what something parents and caregivers are looking for. They're looking to be able to rear face their kiddos, not just to age 2, but also to age 3 and even age 4, and that's what they're looking for in a car seat. And they're looking for that sometimes in a small car and sometimes in a car that's on the go. So, yeah, and that's something that's important to a lot of people.
Thanks, Katherine. I think you explained that so well in terms of how it cradles, how it receives the impact. I mean, I often, talk about, the safest way for all of us to travel, except perhaps the driver, because they need to know where they're going, it is rear facing because it does, absorb the impact all that better. So I'm afraid we're out of time, unfortunately, but thank you so much, Jessica, Katie, Katherine. It's been wonderful having you on the podcast today. It's been a really animated conversation. We could have this conversation for much longer, but thanks for spending the time with me today.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for having us.
On the next episode of Popping the Bubble Wrap, Front and Center, we are talking again about car seats, but we're turning our attention to forward-facing seats. These work differently than rear-facing seats, and you'll definitely want to check out our tips and tricks. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. Popping the Bubble Wrap is a podcast of Parachute, Canada's national injury prevention charity. We release episodes monthly. Visit us at parachute.ca and follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Parachute Canada. Don't keep us a secret, though. Help other parents find this podcast by sharing the link to Popping the Bubble Wrap and taking a second to submit a review. It really does help. Popping the Bubble Wrap is produced by Story Studio Network.